that's 3 dimensions away from Gladiator being called War Hero. I'm your host, 3D Jake, and today we're looking at Gladiator, released in 2000. Gladiator is directed by Ridley Scott and is written by David Funzi, John Logan, and William Nicholson. The movie stars Russell Crowe, Joaquin Phoenix, Connie Nelson, Oliver Reed, Djimon Hounsou, and Richard Harris. The movie is essentially about Russell Crowe's character, who's called Maximus Decimus, who is basically a war hero, and after the battle with their Germany, is essentially, the king, played by Richard Harris, gives him, because he feels like his son, played by Joaquin Phoenix, is not ready to be king and will be a terrible king. So he says, "Look, I want you to be king, and my son is not fit to be king." And so, of course, after Richard Harris tells his son that, his son murders him, and then after that, of course, then demands loyalty from Russell Crowe. When Russell Crowe refuses, he basically has Russell Crowe's family killed, and he does horrible things and tries to kill him. And then, of course, as Russell Crowe gets away, he ends up getting picked up by a gladiator arena, like by slave traders pick him up, and then they sell him into a gladiator pit where he basically will become a gladiator, and he has to fight matches. And when he gets out of the gladiator matches, he's going to, after he wins enough match and gets popularity, wins enough matches, he's going to get his army, come back to Rome, and then free the people of Rome. That is essentially the plot of this movie. I will say, I did not see this movie until 2020, when there was nothing to watch. I literally repainted my house. I bought a new Blu-ray player. I had everything. I bought this movie. I literally bought this movie, and I'm like, you know what? I'm going to watch. I've never seen Gladiator, and everyone says nothing but great things. Like, oh my god, the tiger and Gladiator. I sat down and watched the movie, and I only got through the first 20 minutes, and then I had to turn it off because I was busy. It wasn't because of the movie's fault. But then when I finally watched this movie, I thought it was okay. Like, I didn't think it was like, overhyped. But then again, maybe at the time, if I would have saw it before, I probably would have enjoyed it more. Because I understand there's people out there, like I have friends of mine that have said, like Hocus Pocus, for instance, is an example, where they saw Hocus Pocus and they just said, I don't get it. Like they said, and I'm like, as an adult, you probably would like it more. Just like, a friend of mine said he saw The Thing for the first time, and he doesn't really care for it. He says, I just don't care for it. But I'm like, oh my god, it's such a good movie, though. You have to understand. And he's like, I just don't get it. Like there are some movies that you can watch right now, and you could just love. And I'm sure that people have watched Gladiator and said, you know what, this is fantastic. This is the best movie ever made. Unfortunately for me, I just did not feel that way. I watched it, and I thought it was a good movie. And I definitely believe it deserved all the Oscars it won that year. But I just did not think it deserved it. I think it deserves it, but I don't think it is. Like, if someone says to me, do you think Gladiator is the best movie ever made of war movies in the medieval times? I would say no. I would honestly say it's not even my favorite Ridley Scott movie. Like, honestly, Prometheus is my favorite Ridley Scott movie. I would probably say, if I had to rank this in Ridley Scott movies, I would probably say this is in, like, if out of a top 10, it would be in there, but out of a top 5, probably not. I do think, like, The Martian's better, and I think that, Alien, of course, is better, and I would even say, that I would probably even say the Alien Covenant was better than the... I'm sorry, okay, I know, but I'm just like, I just did not think this one was as good as I was hoping it would be. Like, I just, when I wanted to love this movie. I really did. But I just felt like the whole movie, like, it should have been the whole movie about gladiator matches. I mean, it's called Gladiator. I wanted to see gladiator matches. And it feels like that's more of a smaller plot in the movie compared to the bigger plot. It's just, war, and then he overthrows. I understand you have to get to the gladiator matches, but, like, it takes too long to get to it. And then when we finally do get to it, it doesn't feel like that's the whole movie. Like, for instance, take A Knight's Tale, okay? A Knight's Tale is about jousting. I hope I said that right. Because it's been a while since I did medieval research for stuff. And so, I'm pretty sure it's called jousting. But let's just say it's jousting, That's the one with the horse, and he's got the spear, and he has to hit the knight. I'm hoping that's what it's called. But yeah, so, the whole movie's about jousting. And basically, like, from the beginning of the movie to the end of the movie, that's literally about jousting. And literally, like imagine if you're watching this movie and it like literally focuses on like the stuff that they talk about in off-screen details. Imagine if that's the whole point, and then like midway through the movie is when we get to the jousting stuff, and then at the end is not about jousting, and then at the very end you get like one scene with jousting. Then you would be disappointed because you're like, that's the nice how like the trailers may look like about jousting, and instead it's just like this. And I felt like with Gladiator, like you always see on TNT ads. I remember seeing the TNT ad where he's like, "My name is Gladiator," and I'm like, what, you know, and I just wanted to see that ad, and like I remember seeing like, oh, this could be Gladiator matches all over the place, and instead it's not. And I was kind of disappointed because I'm like, I signed up to watch Gladiator. I did not sign up to watch Maximus Decimus. It should have just been called War Hero. This movie, because literally it's about the war hero Maximus Decimus, or it should have been called Maximus. That right there, I think that would have been the perfect title. Maximus the Gladiator. That would have been perfect too. But instead, I just felt like the whole movie is about. It's like the Gladiator matches is not what the whole premise of the movie is. And also, but I will say Russell Crowe does a great job in the movie as the hero, and he tries to be that noble guy. I would say he's almost reminds me of Jon Snow from Game of Thrones, or Ned Stark. I would say Ned Stark more than Jon Snow. I would say Ned Stark in Game of Thrones. He reminds him of someone that he's a badass, but at the same time he has morals and he's trying to be a morally right person. And I think that's what I really like about that character. Walking Phoenix is basically, if you had to base him on anybody, he's Joffrey from Game of Thrones. That's exactly who he is. He's Joffrey from Game of Thrones, and he whines like a little bitch the whole movie, going like, "Ooh, oh, how dare you, father? How you?" And I'm just like, oh my god, like this is like the level of acting, that we're like walking. Come on, man. Like, come on. Like, I understand people think they love this movie, but I'm just thinking, watch it. I'm like, see him as is like, he's just giving a bitchy performance. And I'm like, come on. You know, there are moments in the movie I do like him, like wherever he's like, when he's talking to his sister, it's really creepy, but also there's some unfortunate incest stuff that happens in that movie that's really, or incestuous intentions in that movie where I'm like, he really wants to fuck his sister and have a child with her, and I'm like, gross. I'm like, this is. I could see honestly George R. R. Martin writing ideas from Game of Thrones from this movie, because I'm like, this is really fucked up. Like ideas like he's like, you know what? What if they're brother and sister? Yeah, it's like, yeah. What if they actually did do it and had children? Like I can see George R. R. Martin writing stuff in this movie. I understand Game of Thrones, the first two or three books came out before Gladiator. So I'm just saying he didn't rip off Game of Thrones from Gladiator. I'm just saying, I'm just making a joke, but still. I do think though that I do like Russell Crowe, and I think Digimon Hansu is really great as his like kind of like his buddy in the movie, that they try to get through these Gladiator matches. And so the matches are great. Like whenever like you have like the guys in the gold face mask and everything coming at Russell Crowe, those are great and everything. And I think the action in this movie is great when it's on screen. And I think, and it really made me happy seeing those matches, but I just, whenever it goes off those matches is when I'm like, oh, And the ending, I kind of felt like, I wish I was hoping to be a big fight between Joaquin Phoenix and Russell Crowe. But I understand, like, Russell Crowe would kill Joaquin Phoenix in that fight. So I understand, but I do like the ending and how it ended, where everyone dies pretty much at the end. And I like how they try to kill all the slaves to do that. And also, there's something I did not know about this facts is, they didn't have a script. They only had like a couple of notes, and they started shooting without a script at all. They just had notes, and then they basically had to come up with a script around the notes. And it's crazy how they were able to make a movie that this good at won an Oscar. Also, there's an act. Oliver Reed passed away making this movie, and so this is the first time you see a dead actor in this movie. And there's a couple of scenes I could tell where, okay, that's CGI, that's not real. But the rest of the movie, like, there are scenes where you could tell, like, okay, this guy, that's obviously computerized into the scene. But, like, it really, like, for 2001, that is impressive how they brought a dead guy in this movie and finished the movie with him. I mean, that's really incredible. And the action's great. Connie Nelson's really great as the king's sister, and Maximus Decimus's old ex-girlfriend. And I do think this, like, the story is where I just had an issue with. I just felt like if I would focus on Gladiator matches and less on the story of Maximus, and just focus on the matches with Maximus in it, like more like A Knight's Tale does, I think I would have loved this movie more. But I did appreciate the story, and I really think it has great cinematography, great action, great direction, and everything. Great score by Hans Zimmer. I just did not like this movie as much as most people do. If I had to give this movie a grade, I would give it a B. Thank you so much.
That goes in eternity.